Sometimes a movie comes out that makes you really feel like this was what cinema was made for. This is why we watch movies. Sometimes a movie comes out that is such a fun ride that you can't help but think, wow, I'm going to treasure this experience for a long while. But it takes a certain type of writer, a certain type of team, and a certain way of thinking that really creates a movie that hits, one that has power and really knows how to hammer home a point that will be drilled into your memory for years to come. And even harder is doing this using the most out-of-pocket and seemingly nonsensical concepts to tell a story that can have this kind of impact. Enter Bugonia, a remake of Save the Green Planet, a Korean sci-fi black comedy, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, a Greek film director who has been behind the camera for 24 years now, although really started to resonate with film fans with 2023's Poor Things. He's someone whose filmography I'm not extremely familiar with, but I do understand and resonate with his style. He very much enjoys deadpan delivery and dark comedy, which go hand in hand, but uses this tactfully to not take away from the socio-political messaging inserted into the movie. Something that, again, I very much appreciate, because it gives his art definitive intent, while there are still aspects always up to interpretation. He also doesn't shy away from gritty and realistic problems, including taboo themes that a lot of other media usually tries to avoid. But I'm glad there's still some filmmakers following the mantra of art should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comforted. And let me tell you, this movie disturbed. Another running through line with Lanthimos is that, like many other film directors, he's got his partner in crime, in Mrs. Emma Stone, first working together on The Favourite in 2018. A few years later, Lanthimos revealed himself as an insane person by somehow directing and producing 3 movies in 3 years, and writing the second of the 3. These of course being Poor Things, Kinds of Kindness, and Bugonia. I did see a post saying he was taking a break from filmmaking, and I think that kind of makes sense. I hope he enjoys his well-earned rest. Anyway, time to talk about this fucking amazing movie. I'm going to be fully transparent, I am still riding the high from leaving the theatre. I can safely say this was an absolute treat to watch, and would recommend it to anyone on the fence. There's that exact blend of dark comedy and bleakness mixed into the movie that works really well with the themes and messaging. It's brimming with symbolism and parallelisms and Oscar-worthy performances, and even discussing this after I left was just such a fun experience. I honestly don't think any description I give Bugonia is going to do it enough justice, but I will try my darndest. Bugonia focuses on Teddy Gatz, played by Jesse Plemons, a conspiracy theorist beekeeper who daylights working in a box shipping factory for the cosmetics and pharmaceutical company Oxalith, run by CEO Michelle Fuller, played by Emma Stone. Michelle is a very public-facing figure when it comes to the marketing of the company, overtly campaigning for diversity in the industry, and trying to uphold loosening the restrictions of work hours, with workers being allowed to leave early, but only if they want to, and only if they don't have any more work to do, and only if they've met their quota. You get the idea. At home, Teddy lives with his cousin Don, played by 19-year-old breakout Aidan Delbus, an actor on the autism spectrum, which is fitting considering that is the intent for Don. He is very much a neurodivergent character, and that plays into his relationship with Teddy, who he views as pretty much an older brother type figure. Teddy and Don both buy into conspiracy theories though, namely that Andromedan aliens are walking among them, and Michelle Fuller is one of them. Teddy and Don have formed a plan that requires maximum focus, disguising themselves and tracking Michelle's daily drive home while listening to Good Luck Babe, literally me by the way, then sedating, kidnapping, and holding her captive in their basement until she agrees to grant them audience with her Andromedan Emperor, while she tries to both unpack exactly what led Teddy and Don into believing these conspiracies to be true, and finding any way she can to reason with and escape from them. First off, Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons are both fighting for that Oscar. They're giving genuinely generational performances, which should be expected considering she's an Oscar winner and he was in Breaking Bad, and was by far the character I hated the most, which might say a lot about me. Their characters come from extremely different backgrounds, which is very intentional since it highlights their perception of each other. The main parallelism being that Michelle is the queen bee in the eyes of Teddy. She benefits from the work of the other bees and reaps the rewards, gets all the credit while not really contributing much, and himself, one of the worker bees, who works tirelessly till they die and never gets the credit he thinks they deserve. While Michelle tries to push a more forward-thinking mindset, talking about diversity and inclusion and making better working environments for those at her company, or at least that's the public face she tries to uphold, whether her true intentions are aligned as such or it's all a facsimile. Those two counterbalanced viewpoints cause many verbal and psychological clashes between the two. Teddy is someone who wants control in the presence of Michelle, especially since the situations they're both in after the plot kicks into gear are ones where he believes he has all the leverage. Their butting heads create some of the most entertaining back and forths that balance Lanthimos' signature black humor, mostly on the side of Michelle's character, which in my opinion makes perfect sense. She's struggling to take the current situation seriously because, well, she was kidnapped by two incompetent goons and now they're claiming she's an alien. Not only is she trying to adjust to this new and hostile environment, but she's not showing weakness that could potentially be targeted or exploited. Michelle is very clearly meant to be an intelligent character, and to pair with this, she says she has a degree in psychology, so uses this in order to challenge the viewpoints of Teddy and Don, and look deeper to see what may have caused this. This dynamic is one of the most intelligently written parts of the movie in my opinion, because it allows for the hostage narrative to be told in a way that doesn't make Michelle seem as powerless as she realistically should be. And naturally, she's a character who very much values this kind of power due to her high status in society, and highlights the incompetencies of Teddy and Don, which creates some of the funniest moments. But it's the continual eroding of Michelle's logical skepticism that pushes Teddy repeatedly and starts to trigger his clearly unstable emotions, because, remember, he's a conspiracy theorist kidnapper. He's not exactly the most mentally sound person, an innate nature shining through. As he argues back, creates the parts of the movie that first took me off into realizing the quality of what I was watching. It's so difficult to write genuinely believable and entertaining arguments. You need both sides to have understandable, not necessarily agreeable, but understandable points when considering their experience and character in what they believe, and then create the right level of back and forth that perpetuates the cycle of taking and relieving ground to allow the other to share their viewpoint and why they disagree. And most of all, do this with maintaining the middle ground in allowing both sides to be understood and maybe even empathized with if not agreed, and not letting one side get too far. Because it's so easy to throw away great writing and dialogue by just having one character step out of line and be a little bit too mean. And I think going further into this balance leads to the fine line Lanthimos had to walk on, but I'll get into more of that later. Outside of Jesse Plemons and Emma Stone, there's still amazing performances across the board. Aidan Delbus as Don, of course, is the third most focused on character. I mentioned Don being written as a neurodivergent character, and that is very clear. He's representative of youth and innocence, and although Teddy is fully gung-ho with his plan of kidnapping Michelle, Don is a little hesitant, and mostly just goes along with what Teddy is planning. He relies on Teddy, looks up to him and all of his conspiracy theories, the pipelines he's fallen down, the echo chambers he's surrounding himself with. These are very much views passed on to Don, who is a victim to emotional and psychological manipulation through the entire movie. And I feel like this is one of the main things Lanthimos is trying to criticize. Now, if you didn't catch it already from this being a remake of a movie called Save the Green Planet, Bugonia is very much a movie with environmental messaging. Teddy is trying to reveal Michelle as an alien because he believes that she is a threat to Earth, and that his and Don's actions are saving the planet. This is also a clashing feature that parallels in Michelle since she, as a CEO of a pharmaceutical company, is trying to help people with all kinds of remedies. And frankly, yeah, these kind of activist pro-environment themes are extremely welcome and necessary in the modern day with all the pollution and destruction that is being perpetuated. It's sad that for a while the ozone layer was healing, but now with the kind of people asking Grok if it's true that the Rock's real name is Dwayne, or using ChatGPT to ask what their blood type is, we're once more testing its limits. Lanthimos is very clearly honing in on the conspiracy theory pipeline and the types of people that fall into that, whether it be victims trying to cope with the damage done to them, or worse, groomed into not being able to form their own beliefs and just parroting their parents without realizing it. Something that we see more and more in the age of social media parenthood, or the innocents that simply comply through peer pressure and borderline convince themselves that they must be true because how could the people they trust lie to them? He highlights exactly how damaging this kind of mindset can be and how isolating the path it leads you down is. But most of all, I feel like it's a very intentional way to give the audience different readings of the allegories used. Teddy believes that aliens walk among humans. He is suspicious of his fellow man. He doesn't believe people he interacts with. He deludes himself into the idea that he is an expert at figuring out who is an alien, and he believes that quote-unquote, aliens are the ones who are destroying the planet. One could even say, replacing them? Taking their jobs? That's right, Teddy and Don could be read as allegories for ICE, which was kind of a crazy conclusion to come to when I first noticed it, but it does make sense. I mean, they kidnapped someone under a fucking suspicion. And I have to say, seeing an award-winning director make a movie in the year of 2025 that could be seen as critiquing anti-immigrant nationalists is something that I think we really need right now, especially if it includes Batman destroying them. Although sadly, that does not happen in Bugonia. Maybe we got a sequel though? Just saying. Alongside the incredible acting, Bugonia is accompanied with a transcendent score. And I don't use that word lightly. They went all out on making the music for this movie one of a kind, using the 90-piece London Contemporary Orchestra alongside composer Jerskin Fendrix. It makes even simple scenes of Teddy riding his bike to work seem intense and increase the paranoia of them getting caught. And it makes the real race against time moments in the second and third act push you right to the edge of your seat. Honestly, watching Bugonia for the first time may as well be a glutes workout, because not only will you be clenched all over, but you'll come to realize you've transitioned to squatting to get closer to the screen. My absolute favourite part of Bugonia, however, and I'm sure many people will agree, is the tone. There's a reason I titled this video, Bugonia, a Masterclass in Tone. This is a movie where the main characters are kidnappers, and yet there is a healthy serving of comedy. Black comedy, with dry and deadpan delivery, but comedy nonetheless. It wants you to lower your guard. It wants you to feel some sort of attachment to these characters. It wants you to enjoy the events, all the while trying to make you think, as you question if this woman really is the innocent damsel she pleads to be. Even in the trailers, you can see that they're not trying to present either Teddy or Michelle's side as the one that you should root for. They have this back and forth throughout the entire movie where you're balancing who is really in the right, or if Teddy is somehow dead on. But to go more into detail, I'll have to get into spoilers. Bugonia is one of my favourite movies to come out this year, and that is saying something because I adore so many of these new releases. I highly recommend you watch it completely unspoiled and enjoy all of the masterful decisions made yourself. It's definitely going to lead me to check out the rest of Lanthimos' filmography, and it left me feeling truly touched by the filmmaking process. I mean what I say when it's one of the most powerful movies of the year. So please skip to the timestamp on screen to avoid spoilers, okay? 3, 2, 1, not the bees! Okay, Bugonia is a masterclass in both tone and pacing because of exactly how the movie progresses. The first act gets us used to the characters. We get to know Don, Teddy, and Michelle as our core three, with a small visit from Casey, the local sheriff and former babysitter of Teddy, who, is implied to have done some pretty bad things to him, as played by Stavros Halkias. This is the most comedic part of the movie, with some of the best lines. We understand the perspectives of everyone here, and it's setting the stage for the battle of wits and manipulation to follow. But the dial starts to turn. Teddy gets angrier. He shows his true colours more, his personal stake in the conflict. He blames Michelle for what was done to his mother, and this could also be read as him trying to dehumanize her, trying to see her as less than human so he can abuse and get revenge on her because of this. He gets violent and he turns to torture. Things get worse and worse for Michelle until all of a sudden we get the real gut punch. The entire scene of Michelle pleading with Don while Teddy entertains Casey and keeps him away from finding out the truth. She thinks she's finally getting through to Don until he turns the barrel to his chin. And when I tell you my entire audience gasped, I mean everyone. It was one of the loudest things I've heard in a theater in a while. And it was truly a moment that does not ask, it does not request, it grabs you by the collar and demands you lock the fuck in and focus on this masterpiece. It's after this that things just get darker and darker. We learn the truth behind Teddy's history with aliens, and his simple idiocy leads him to make terrible decisions. And this is the crux of the messaging of the movie: human stupidity. Yorgos Lanthimos hits the nail on the head with a bullet that pushes it into the bullseye by saying that the real thing killing the planet is simple. It's the hubris of humanity. And you might think that this is a really simple and done-to-death message that a lot of media uses. Oh, humans are the real monsters. But I've never seen such a direct call-out to a specific subset of humanity. Teddy is meant to represent so much. The downtrodden trying to regain some form of power, such as incels, who also take out their anger on independent women who don't give them the time of day. The discriminatory nationalists who refuse to allow outsider help to happen. The vengeful and angry villains who hide their destructive tendencies behind noble intent. He is the pinnacle of the worst of humanity. And this is exactly what we learn as the movie goes on, in such a perfect way. Because there's a reason this movie starts in a much more comedic way. Since, well, conspiracy theorists are kind of funny. How many times have you laughed at a flat earther? Someone claiming vaccines cause autism? Or how about saying 5G is cancer? Those who believe lizard people walk among us? I'm sure we've all been there at one point. But look at the world now. Look at the President of the United States being the man who told people to inject Windex into their system to fight COVID. The Secretary of Health Services fully believing paracetamol causes autism. Look at everything they are, everything they become, and everything they surround themselves with. These idiots are the scum of the earth and the ones barreling humanity off the edge of a cliff. And this all culminates in the ending of the movie. I'm going to end spoilers here because I do want to conclude. Bugonia is a hilarious, thought-provoking, and endlessly entertaining movie that packs an absolute punch. It left me pondering my orb and then orbiting my pond. And it takes a lot for a movie to make me think of different interpretations, even days later. Between this and One Battle After Another, it's clear that a lot of directors want to critique the state of the world and especially politics in the modern day. And Lanthimos nails every point. Paired with Oscar-worthy performances from Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons, we're in for an absolute treat this Oscar season with all the worthy candidates. It knows when to be goofy, it knows when to be serious, and it knows when to include some of the darkest content of any non-horror movie in recent memory. It's left its lasting impression on me, and I hope you go out and see it so you can feel the same way. Truly an amazing theatre experience that looks, sounds, and feels amazing. I'm giving Bugonia a very enthusiastic 9.5 out of 10, and I have to say, it's darkly refreshing to be reminded that after everything, no matter how long into the future, Mother Nature will always persevere. She lived through the dinosaurs, the Ice Age, countless wars, and atomic destruction caused by greed and hatred perpetuated by humanity. She has been abused over and over again and kept going. But ultimately, humanity cannot kill Mother Nature. Because way before that would ever happen, we would have killed ourselves. And then the bees would return to their rightful place. Wow, that was an absolute blast of a video to make, and I'm glad to be back. Now that we're in November, I can talk about non-spooky content, and this was a movie I knew I had to make a video on. However, I do have to make this a derivative YouTube outro, so if you enjoyed this video, please like it, and if you want to see more of me and my silly little movie reviews, subscribe. Only around 2% of my viewers are actually subscribed, and no, that is not an exaggeration at all. I'd really like to push to 1,000 subscribers. That would make me absolutely ecstatic. But until then, I thank you all for your support. I hope you all have a wonderful start to your November. Take care, and remember to have fun. Thank you. Bye.